Hi guys, I'm Hannah,
And I'm Nikki.
and we want to tell you a little bit about listening. We're going to talk about the role listening plays in effective communication, the process of how listening actually works, and the different types of listening and how it's relevant to our lives. Many people think that listening is a passive process, but the listener has to be patient, objective, analytical, making listening a rather active process. Most people don't realize that the listener basically has as much power in communication as does the speaker. If the listener fails to be attentive, the speaker loses all reason to speak at all. In addition, many people use the terms hearing and listening interchangeably, but these two are not at all the same. The hearing process refers to the reception of a message through sensory channels and is only one of the aspects of listening. The listening process, on the other hand, one of my main points today, entails reception, attention, perception, the assignment of meaning, and the listener's response to the message. The first step in the listening process, the actual reception of the stimulus or message, involves the physical interactions between the ear and the brain. Reception also includes visuals. Visuals really help the listener remember what is being said because it creates little reminders as the person is speaking, and the listener can think of that later on to remember. Once the stimulus is received, it reaches the attention stage. Attention represents the focus on a specific stimulus selected from all the stimuli received at that moment. Attention is usually divided into three categories: what you are currently listening to, what is happening in the rest of the environment around you, and what else is going on in your mind already. The attention span of the average adult ranges from 7 to 20 minutes. And an easy way you can check this is by looking around in your next lecture 20 minutes after the professor starts speaking and see how many people are actually still paying attention. The next step is perception. During this stage, the listener analyzes the information that he or she has just received. The perceptual filter separates the information so you can more easily interpret the message. It is how you screen your messages according to your predispositions such as life experiences, background, and culture. The next step in the listening process is the assignment of meaning. In this step, we assign the stimuli into different predetermined categories in accordance with our language system. After the meaning has been assigned, the next step is the response. When we receive a stimulus, we store it internally in our brain, and then we react externally to the stimulus by providing feedback to the speaker. Feedback can be verbal or nonverbal in the form of questions or head nods. And now we're going to go to Nikki, who's going to talk to us about the different types of listening.
I'm here to talk to you today about the 5 different types of listening. They are discriminative, comprehension, therapeutic, critical, and appreciative. Discriminative listening is when you try to distinguish between auditory and visual stimuli, so you can sense the differences in sounds, unique gestures, and facial reactions. Through this, you are able to gain sensitivity to the sights and sounds of the world. Sometimes people may say something, but their tone and facial expression might show that they're being sarcastic. It's important to understand the difference in order to actually realize what has been said. Comprehension listening is when you attempt to deeply understand and retain the information that has been said. To do this, in the classroom setting, students often take notes. An effective way to listen comprehensively is by getting the main points first, then organize the supporting details that go along with each point. Sometimes people use a technique in which they clarify and confirm by asking for additional information or explanation. This works well when a technique known as bridging is used when you relate one part of a message to another. Also, it's very easy to forget the information you just learned, so many listeners try to review the information right away to retain the ideas better. Therapeutic listening is important in counseling and different types of social work. It requires the listener to realize when you can ask questions, stimulate further discussion, and possibly give advice. This type of listening requires the person to have empathy for the other person because you must be able to put yourself into the other person's shoes and see the world from their perspective. Therapeutic listeners must not try to solve their problem and tell them what they would do in their situation because that's not helping. Sometimes a person just needs time to let out their problems and get in touch with their feelings. Critical listening is when the listener decides whether or not they want to accept or reject the message. They judge the message on factors such as the speaker's personal appeal, also known as their credibility, the arguments and evidence presented, motivational appeals, and the assumptions made by the speaker, and also the things the speaker implies. It is important to take all that into consideration when judging the message. The last type of listening, also the most popular, is appreciative listening. It's when people listen to things that give them enjoyment or stimulate their senses. These can be examples such as listening to comedians and music videos. Now we're going to go back to Hannah and we're going to see how she relates listening to her future career goals in everyday life.
Thanks, Nikki. So guys, you might not realize it, but listening is actually such an important part of our everyday lives. You basically use it all the time, even if you're by yourself. There are always sounds and stimuli surrounding you, and you're always reacting to them, even if you don't know it. One example of how listening is important to your daily lives is comprehensive listening. This is especially relevant to people like us who are still in school. We use this listening all the time in an academic environment. We gain information and do our best to retain it. When we are sitting in a lecture or watching YouTube videos to teach us about the material because we skipped lecture, we are performing comprehensive listening. Another way listening relates to our lives is when we need to evaluate certain messages. As Nikki said, this is critical thinking. When we're walking on campus and someone tries to sell us something, or we're watching TV and come across a commercial, we listen, evaluate the message, and then decide how we want to react. In this type of listening, the evaluation of the message is extremely important. Communication is the base for everything. It is also so important for our future. For basically every single career out there, you need to be a good listener. You need to be able to hear your bosses, your coworkers, and your clients. You need to understand and evaluate their messages and be able to give them a timely response. In the future, I hope to be a criminal justice lawyer. But if I can't listen, I can't be a lawyer. One of the most important things a lawyer can do is listen. Lawyers have to listen to their clients and fully understand their predicament. They have to be responsive and give feedback and possible solutions right away. In the courtroom, they have to listen to the judge and react quickly. They also have to listen to the arguments of their opponents. This is one of the most important tasks. Lawyers need to fight for their clients by defeating their opponent and convincing the jury. They can't do this if they don't listen to what the other side is actually saying. They need to listen, evaluate, and respond. Being a lawyer, just like being anything else in this world, requires people to listen. You have to listen if you want to succeed. And now we're going to go back to Nikki, who's going to tell us about her life and career and how listening will help her.
So listening is a very integral part of my everyday life. After using my comprehension and critical listening in class during lectures, I like to sit back and enjoy some television, which is a very popular form of appreciative listening. In the future, I aspire to become a doctor, and in order to be successful in that field, I must strive to incorporate the different types of listening. Discriminative listening is important in the case of doctors when we hear an irregular heartbeat. We need to be able to tell the difference between a normal sounding heart and an abnormal one. We also must incorporate comprehensive listening because the patients always come first. When they're giving us all of their symptoms, it is important we take note of all of them with great detail so we can treat them properly. Also, therapeutic listening is very important as well because sometimes patients do not necessarily need medication, but just someone to listen to certain medical conditions they've been going through or think they're going through. To do this effectively, we must understand the problem from their perspective to fully treat them. Critical listening is essential as well when determining how to help a patient in urgent care. We need to be able to respond quickly and judge the urgency of the situation by sensing the cues we get from the patients and the family. And last but not least, appreciative listening, which everyone requires after a hard day of work, helps stimulate our senses and enjoy messages. It's difficult to always use these different techniques of listening for doctors, so after a day of working, they can sit back and appreciatively listen to some type of music or comedians. Thanks, guys!
We hope you learned a little something about listening.